The city that never sleeps. The greatest city in the world. I'm wearing the wrong shirt. All right, now that is better. A while back, my best friend Emily and I went on a bit of a road trip. We went driving for probably 7-8 hours down to Manhattan. Only for a couple days, but if you know me, you know that I had to bring a camera. Actually, a couple cameras. There's this camera that I'm filming on here. There was my phone, obviously, but most importantly, it was this 35mm manual camera. And I even brought my medium format mamiya 645 because I thought if I'm gonna photograph New York, well, I'm gonna do it right. We were only there for a couple days, so I only really shot one roll of each. I took some additional digital photos, and I took a lot of photos on my phone as well. But my favorites by far were everything shot on film. And quite honestly, same with Emily's. There's just some feeling to it. I had black and white 35mm in my one camera, so that's why all these shots are going to be black and white that you're seeing. And we started off driving down and it rained almost the whole way, off and on, off and on. Shout out to Emily because she just drove through it all with no problem. Actually, the one shot here, you can see just how much it's pouring. Like, you could barely see the car in front of you at times. And we're going up through the mountains in upstate New York, going all down. There was some road work at one point where there was just a giant trail of steam that you could barely see through, but just powered through, took it all on. I was gonna be like, do you wanna trade out something? She's like, nah, just keep me awake. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. I'll be the DJ. So we did. And ultimately the night before we stayed in Jersey and then drove into Manhattan the next morning. Now, as a person, I'm somebody who usually gets up pretty early, earlier than most people my age, even on a day off, even on vacation. And this was no exception. And I knew that they wouldn't be up till a little bit later, where then we would go get breakfast, we would go start visiting around different places from there. Being in New York, I always want to make the most out of it, so I did. So we were in the lower side of Manhattan, and I would wake up at 6:37 every day, and then I would just go stroll around for a couple hours, taking photos, seeing what's up. That's actually why a lot of the photos that you'll see here are either a sort of street style or they're kind of that architectural vibe, especially because I hadn't gone by the Oculus and stuff like that before. So I wanted to get some shots of it. One of my favorites actually is this one where you see the New World Trade Center standing and then you see kind of the fins of the Oculus. I don't know if that's what you'd call them, the wings, the fins, the bits that poke out, and how that's really framed nicely. That shot just like, it just stayed in my mind. I actually have it on my collage wall of photos printed in my office for that very reason. And we would just go around. Some of these photos ended up being more abstract in nature, like some of them inside the Oculus, just because I thought they looked cool. That's ultimately what it was. Because, you know, you sometimes see interesting elements, interesting design out in the wild, and sometimes you just want to capture it. And I really wanted to use the architectural landscape of New York to kind of influence a lot of these photos. If you know me and you know the style of photography that I do, it's very much not this. It's very posed, set up. It's a lot of times commercial and advertising. And for these were just for me, quite honestly. And you know, maybe I could sell some prints of them or one thing or the other, or display them on a wall, which would be great. But at the end of the day, this was just taking photos to document life, to have fun, to just take some photos. That's what I love film for. So then we went different places. We went to the Met, obviously. Being a fashion photographer, this is when they had the World of Fashion exhibit. I forget the exact name of it, but we went through that, which was incredible. Then afterwards, I got this shot of Emily taking a Polaroid of the steps leading up the Met, and actually she was blown away by that photo, which was just great to see. But as we're going through, sometimes I'd take the camera with me, sometimes I wouldn't. I was just trying to really be present in the moment, which is why I love carrying around a film camera anyways, if I'm going to carry around one. And I was taking a lot of photos on film. So then she was like, hey, let me take a couple of you. Mainly it was on our phones and whatnot, which is fine. But then leading into this, we wanted to find some kind of rooftop bar or something that would be really cool to go to. So we found this one on the 31st floor. Sometimes I'm timid around heights. I realize what really gets me is those like metal grates and catwalks. If you're going across those will just, I can't do it. Even if it's on like the 7th floor or something. I was in an abandoned building once filming a project, and we were there legally, don't worry, we had permits and everything. And that, I couldn't do it. I was exploring a little bit with this, with a couple other people, and I couldn't get myself to do it. I would go on the roof of the building even higher up, but I couldn't do the catwalk thing. So we're up on the 31st floor, having some drinks, having fun, and it was a great time. And I brought the Mamiya up there because I thought if there's a time to use this roll and really get the most out of it, it'll be right now. So we took some posed photos, some of which in learning this camera, this is before I had used it more, I missed focus a couple of times, so that's on me, and you might not see all of those photos. But the photos that turned out, I was so happy with, and what a landscape to have as your backdrop, right? And to shoot it on 645 just made it look so incredible. The light, you couldn't ask for better light, quite honestly. It was that evening, kind of 7 p.m., 7 p.m., and it just is beautiful, almost golden hour light. Incredible. And these are still some of my favorite photos. But there was something that happened during this trip that made me bringing this camera, made me doing this, made me being a photographer. It just further emphasized all of it. Because we walk in, we're sitting down, we're getting some drinks, we're having fun, grab a bite to eat, and Emily gets up and she goes to the bathroom. And as she does, this couple comes in. One very clearly in a wedding dress, one in a suit. So you already know they're getting married, right? And I imagine they did a small thing, or this is between ceremony and reception. And I don't consider myself to be a wedding photographer. I've shot weddings, a handful of them, and whenever I do it well, because obviously I'm not gonna have somebody pay me to shoot something and not try to do my best. But it's just not my primary type of photography. But the bride has her, I assume husband at that point, take a photo of her on her phone. And they're one table over from us. And I'm like, this is the Canadian in me, by the way. I look over and I'm like, hey, like, you're very clearly getting married, right? Do you want me to take a photo of the two of you on your phone? And they're like, yeah, that would be great. And I said, like, I'm a photographer, so it's okay. Like, don't worry. I know what I'm doing, so it'll look good. So, I took a couple, I did some vertical, I did some horizontal, so it would be just better. So they would have more to work with there, right? So at this point, I sit back down, and then this other couple, another table over, goes, hey, did you say you're a photographer? I'm like, yeah. They're like, can you take a photo of us? I imagine they were visiting out of town or something, so I take a photo of them. They're like, great. And then as I'm walking back, the bride starts talking to me, asking if I have Instagram or business cards or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, for sure. So we exchange information. And then I hear that their photographer canceled on them, like last minute. And for me, being a photographer, that just did not sit right. And I was like, oh God, they were gonna have all these great photos, and I don't know if they managed to wrangle it together last minute. They mentioned they tried to pull something together, but I don't know if it really worked out. And here we are, 31st floor, right in Manhattan. We were right by the Empire State Building. And I'm like, this does not feel right. And I think about it, and I think about the amount of photos that we've shot. And I think, I don't have my digital camera with me. I don't have this, my Canon R. I'm like, my phone won't quite do it justice. And I don't have my 35mm camera, but I have my Mamiya 645. And you get 12 shots in a roll. And I knew that I had 3 left. So I told them, I was like, hey, I have a film camera with me. I have 3 shots left in the roll, and it doesn't sit right with me that your photographer canceled. We're on a rooftop bar in downtown Manhattan. Do you want to take some photos really quick? Emily's still in the bathroom at this point. She has no idea this is happening. So I take them off to the side, get that beautiful backlight, and at this moment I'm praying to every deity, God imaginable that I just get these in focus. Because I know the settings will be good. I just need to make sure they're in focus because I've only got 3 shots. What I wish I did was I wish I had one vertical, the Empire State Building in the background, their 2 heads kind of in together. That would have been iconic. But that's not what I did because I was kind of under the gun and I'm like, I just want to get some good photos for you. So I got 3 shots. Now, this couple, I don't believe everyone knows that they're married, something like that, or they don't want their photos shared. So I'll post what the photos look like. I'll just Photoshop my cat's head onto each of them. So their faces won't be shown, but you'll get an idea of the photos themselves. Because I got the film developed, and luckily I had their contact information. And I opened the photos, and I'm sitting there the entire time as it's downloading, just please let these be in focus. Please let them be in focus. Because the depth of field on a medium format camera like this becomes so much thinner than a regular full frame camera, than a regular 35mm camera. So it's harder to get it tack sharp and focus. But I looked at it and I nailed it. Each photo. And I thought they're gonna be so happy. And I edited them a couple different times just to make sure I had them how I really wanted them. I think I converted one to black and white just for that timeless feel. And I sent them to them and they absolutely loved them. Before we left, actually, the groom, as Emily came back and explained how all of this happened, the groom offered to buy us a round of drinks or something. And we were actually getting ready to leave at that point. So we said, thank you, like that's very kind, but we're actually on our way out, so. And I think I just paid for what we had. But that was nice of them to offer regardless. And if they ever see this video, know that we appreciate that. And I hope this will be a story that you share as much as it's one that I share with everyone. This is something, if I have kids, if I have grandkids, they're gonna hear about this story and they'll see the photos, trust me. It's one of those moments that stays with you, and I could have easily just not said anything. I could have let him take the photo of her. I could have exchanged information, talked about it, whatever, and let that be it. But I knew I had those couple shots left. And I knew that those few shots would be more impactful, beyond just me, than what else I would have shot with them. And having finished the roll, there wasn't a point in the end of the trip where I was like, oh, I wish I had those 3 more shots, right? Because I had my 35mm camera, I had my digital camera, I had my phone if I really needed something else, but in that moment, I didn't have anything else. So I used it, and it was probably the best camera for the job. And you only had 3 shots, and each one of them came out perfect. That story's gonna live with me. It's things like this that photography and film can bring people together. Because had I not started shooting film, I might not have that camera or any camera with me. Maybe I just have my phone. And that's not much better than just using their phone. So let this be a lesson to keep your eyes open, be open to opportunities, be open to saying yes to things, because I could have just let that pass by but I didn't. And I'm really glad I didn't. And I've started doing more things like that. And it fills me with joy and almost a bit of a purpose. And these are some of my favorite photos from the trip, just because of the story behind them. And I think this has just made me want to carry around a film camera more, document more of my life, more adventures, more journeys, more everything. Because some moments you'll look back on and not remember. Some moments may pass you by, but film keeps it in a way where you don't lose that moment, but you also don't lose the ability to be present in the moment either. You don't feel like you're viewing the moment through a screen at the same time. You're there present in the moment, and you have the memory of it in the photograph. And that's ultimately why I shoot film. Plus the feeling, plus it looks cool, plus it's just great, but it is expensive. And honestly, this is more of a camera, my Mamiya, that I use for work more than anything. I use it for more portfolio style images. There's a lot of photos in my portfolio taken on that camera, but being able to carry it around and use it for both is great as well. It is heavy, so I don't always recommend doing it, but in this moment, it was worth it. And I think that's what counts. So I hope you managed to take something meaningful away from this, because ultimately I did. And I already can't wait to go back. So with all that said, subscribe if you haven't already to follow along this journey with me. And remember, as always, to work hard, rest often, and I'll see you on the next one.